It sure does get boring being an all-knowing locomotive god. There's nothing new for me to learn or do.
I almost wish that psychopath Diesel 10 would come back, but now he's all nice, which is somehow creepier.
Wanna mess with the mortals?
Gods, yes.
You silly steamers are out of date. I'm the future. Gods, can those diesels ever get new material?
Hey, what's this? Shoot, I was aiming for the Diesel.
What the f***?
That'll work.
David Mitten, you f***ing legend. I knew we hadn't seen the last of your work. This is the Thomas version of finding an unreleased Mozart song in a basement. For those who don't know, a channel called Valesbridge Productions was able to acquire some of the unused scripts for Season 5 episodes that never came to be. And the one story that everyone's talking about is James and Super E.D, where we are introduced to the character Super E.D. Ed? E.D? I don't know. Other channels out there have already covered his and the other scripts, so check them out for many of the other production details. I'll just be sticking with Super Ed for this one. Here's the basic rundown. E.D. is a diesel-electric locomotive that was brought on to do James's work after James had an accident. E.D. was originally a poor performer, constantly breaking down. Then one day, the rails in front of E.D. are struck by lightning, turning E.D. into Super E.D. Yeah, I don't know if the name was intentional or not, but talk to your doctor if you're feeling super for more than 4 hours. Super E.D. is an amazing performer, impressing both the passengers and the Fat Controller alike. This high praise and attention gets to his head, making him conceited. He brags to James and the other engines, who resent James for being the reason E.D. was needed in the first place. One engine particularly threatened by Super E.D. was Gordon, whose express record was now in jeopardy of being stolen by Super E.D. One day at the station, lightning ricochets off of Gordon's bumper and jumps onto Super E.D, electrocuting the diesel and making him belch smoke. The Fat Controller demands that the source of the smoke be scrapped, not knowing it was Super E.D. Super E.D. is then scrapped, and James behaved much better from then on. Yeah, Super Ed is strange, to say the least. He reminds me of a character that I'd come up with while recording a character gallery on 3 straight days without sleep. It makes total sense why Britt Allcroft's reaction to the script was to just nope the heck out of there. It's such a great glimpse into the creative mind of David Mitten, balanced by Britt Allcroft's vision for the franchise. Pre-Magic Railroad, at least. Like many in the fandom, though, I am happy this one stayed in the drafts. We don't even talk about Speedy Sid the driver, which also came from these scripts, because of how much he lives in Super E.D.'s massive shadow. What a character. And I could have just left it there, but my custom finger continued itching, and I just couldn't ignore it. But how am I supposed to make rational sense of Super E.D. and then put him in custom form? I decided to just start painting and ask questions later, so here are my 3 different custom takes on Super E.D., the weirdest Thomas character to have ever lived. Except for Stefano.
My legendary beach landing gets them every time.
Need a moment to take it in?
My first custom of Super E.D. was based on the version of his continuity that I immediately thought of after listening to the story and seeing Owen Salty's fan art of Super E.D. The Diesel 10 angle was just too tempting. Had Super E.D.'s story actually been greenlit, and assuming that all other Season 5 characters were still introduced, then Super E.D. would have been the 10th Diesel introduced into the TV series, instead of Diesel 10. So that means that Diesel 10 either has to be the 11th Diesel, or the same character as Super E.D. See what I'm doing here? In this alternate reality, Super E.D is made using the Class 40 prop, which was available and on standby from Season 4. The reason I went with this was because that's what would have been convenient. Something tells me in the same season, with a repaint of Duke into Bertram, that the production would not have been above repainting Class 40 into Super E.D. There's also precedent for this with how Henry was almost modified to become Big City Engine back in Season 3. So, Class 40 is painted into Super Ed, and the episode is filmed. I'm sure the script would have undergone some changes in the meantime. I don't think Grit would allow for Super ED to be scrapped, and probably would have changed it so that the Fat Controller simply has Ed sent away. This keeps the door open for future uses for the character. The episode is then edited, and ED is even included on the cover of Spills and Chills. He gets an Ertl model and a Thomas Wooden Railway model. Sales are very good even for a Class 40 repaint. D199 is discontinued early to avoid confusion with Super ED. Then, Britt Allcroft wants to make her big fancy movie. David Mitton is able to convince her in 1999 to revive Super ED, now in his villain arc as Diesel 10. It's always bothered me in Thomas and the Magic Railroad that the Fat Controller has Diesel 10 brought to the island. I feel like he would know better. I don't think the Fat Controller would knowingly bring in a psychotic killer monster Diesel. However, the way around this is to go back to the original story where the Fat Controller actually loves Super ED. So, when the Fat Controller hears that Super ED is available, he's eager to give him a second chance. Since the Fat Controller didn't know that ED had gone down a dark path and became Diesel 10, he's not aware of the sinister monster he's actually unleashed on his island. Beyond that, nothing else has changed about Magic Railroad, except now Diesel 10 is a Class 40 instead of a warship class. Imagine the adventures of Diesel 10 packs you could sell. I made an edit of a Class 40 version of Diesel 10, and it's just not right. The TWR custom I made is just a recolor of Class 40 with the Diesel 10 face. Nothing too crazy to write home about. I did include the number D10 to reinforce that this is a young Diesel 10, and also the 10th Diesel on the island. Kinda reminds me of Syndrome from The Incredibles before he became evil. What a swell fella. A lot of people have tried to find out a potential basis for Super ED. We believe that ED stands for Electro Diesel, which narrows things down to him being either a Class 73 or 74. The 73 in particular was built as a proof of concept for a potential Super Electro Diesel down the road, aka a BR Class 75, which never existed in reality. For this take on Super ED, I went the quote-unquote realistic route, as if there is ever such a thing for this guy, and made him into a BR Class 73. I tried to replicate a livery seen by some BR Class 73s with my own embellishments. The story in this case plays out pretty much as it was in the script. This is Super ED in his electrified era, with his new name on the side of him and a lightning bolt cutting through the British Railways logos that he wears proudly. I've given him a menacing face and a couple other details. I like the square boxiness of this Super ED, although his embedded face makes him more Railway series coded than something you'd see in the TV series. If Super ED was meant to have some more realism to his character, I imagine he'd look something similar to this. So I guess you can call this Railway series Super ED, as Audrey surely intended.
No.
And lastly, here's my preferred take on Super ED. I really like the idea of making ED a Class 75 Super Electro Diesel that was never made in real life. A one-off, if you will, a prototype of this class that in our timeline never actually existed. For the sake of storytelling, let's say that a Class 75 was really made by BR and sent on trial to Sodor while James was being repaired. The story plays out as normal until the end, where Gordon's lightning bolt doesn't get Super ED killed, but just damages him, instead to a degree where he is taken away and can be repaired. Super ED is sent back to the mainland and sent away, eventually being repaired and running on BR. As for the custom, this is by far my favorite of the three. I used a talking Diesel 10 as the basis since his curves were not as severe as on a regular wooden railway Diesel 10. I also like that you could look at this and not immediately tell it was Diesel 10 to begin with. So there's some creativity with the details on the cab roof and the window placement. So it's not exactly going to look like a 73 or a 74, which is exactly what I was going for. My own take on this class, which is, you know, the 75. I removed Pinchy and I filled the empty space with clay. After the clay dried, I gave him some paint and then added details with a Sharpie. The final touch was to add a face from a TWR Butch onto the front of him, which fit the space perfectly. If I was to use Super E.D in any of my stories, it would be this guy. Who knows? Maybe you will see him one day. This diesel is too fun of a concept for me to ignore. The chances of me writing and producing a whole movie on Super E.D are low, but never zero. You're talking to the guy who created Booster here. Which Super E.D did you like the most, and what do you think of his character in general? If you were going to make a custom on him, what would he look like? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. If you have your own take on Super E.D, I'd love to hear that as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm HiroTheJapaneseTrain, signing off. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Super